Hello everyone. I'm the storyteller from the channel Whispered Tales and I'm here to help you today. I know you use this video to fall asleep, so before that, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where are you from? At what time are you watching? Now, get comfortable and relax. There is a particular kind of darkness that doesn't feel natural. It isn't simply the absence of light, but a presence of something else. Something watching. Miles away from any town, beneath a sky choked by moonless clouds, I drove a road that wasn't on the map. It had appeared only after I took a wrong turn. Or maybe I hadn't turned at all. Maybe the road had turned me. The car's headlights cut through the mist in dull arcs. Trees hunched on either side of the narrow path like ancient figures in prayer. The radio was silent. Even static had abandoned me. I had been driving for hours, searching for somewhere, anywhere, to stop. My eyes ached. My stomach growled. The GPS spun, confused, stuck on a screen that read recalculating, over and over again. That's when I saw it. A sign, half covered in moss, barely visible in the high beams. Wooden, crooked, hand-painted in letters that once might have been white, Ashridge Hollow, 1 mile. I pulled over, staring. I'd never heard of it. My phone showed no service. But the air was getting colder, and sleep threatened to pull me under even behind the wheel. I didn't have many choices. So I turned toward Ashridge Hollow. The road narrowed, now only a single lane of crumbling stones. My tires crunched over gravel and damp leaves. The mist thickened until I could see only feet ahead. And then, just as I was about to turn back, the fog parted, like a curtain being drawn, and I saw a village. Tiny homes, steep roofs, stone chimneys. A church steeple leaned slightly to the left. Gaslight-style lanterns flickered on wooden posts, casting golden halos in the night. And there, at the center of the square, stood the inn. It rose taller than the other buildings. 3 stories. Red-bricked, ivy-covered, with dark green shutters and a black iron sign swinging gently from a crooked beam, the Thorn House, rooms and rest since 1886. I parked near the edge of the village and stepped out. The silence was almost holy. No insects. No wind. Just the sound of my own breathing, loud in the cold air. I entered the inn. The door creaked open with the complaint of old hinges. Inside, the scent of old wood, fire smoke, and something faintly floral met my nose. A fire crackled in the hearth. Candles lined the hallway. It was warm. Too warm, maybe. A woman stood behind the desk. Tall. Pale. Wearing a dress of old-fashioned lace. Her hair was silver, though her face did not look old. "You found us," she said softly, as if she had been expecting me. "I wasn't planning to." Do you have a room?" "All our rooms are ready," she replied, not answering my question, and turned the registry toward me. There were no names on it. I signed anyway. She handed me a heavy iron key with a wooden tag, room 3. I followed the candlelight up the stairs. The hallway above was carpeted in faded red. Paintings hung on the walls, portraits of unsmiling men and women, their eyes following me too closely. The kind of paintings you never look at twice. The kind you hope aren't watching. Room 3 was near the end of the hall. The key turned with a heavy click. Inside, a simple bed, an armchair, a vanity. A single window. And a door across the room, leading, presumably, to the bathroom. I shut the door behind me. My phone still had no signal. No Wi-Fi. No bars. Just a black screen with the time glowing dimly. 11:11 p.m. I placed it on the nightstand. The mattress sighed beneath me as I sat down. The fire in the small grate flickered gently. A wind whispered against the windowpane like fingernails on glass. I hadn't realized how exhausted I was. My eyes closed without meaning to. I didn't even change clothes. I just laid back. And I slept. But I didn't dream. At least, not at first. When I opened my eyes, the fire was out. The room was darker than it should have been. The candle I had left burning was gone. Not melted, gone. I sat up slowly. There was a sound, just at the edge of hearing. Like water dripping in a cave. Faint. Slow. Drip, drip, drip. It was coming from the other door. The bathroom. I stood, the floorboards groaning beneath me. My hand found the doorknob. Cold. Unreasonably cold. I turned it, expecting resistance, but it opened easily. The bathroom was dark, save for the glow of the moon through the small window. Drip. The sink tap was leaking. Drip. I stepped forward, and stopped. In the mirror, there was someone else in the room with me. But when I turned, no one. I looked back. The mirror now showed only me. Pale. Tired. My reflection's eyes slightly slower than my own. Drip. I turned off the tap. The dripping stopped. The silence that followed was louder than sound. I left the bathroom and closed the door, not noticing until later that the mirror had no reflection of the room behind me. The next morning, if it was morning, the sun hadn't risen. The sky outside was still black. The village below was still. I dressed and headed downstairs. No one was there. Not the woman from before. Not any guests. The fire was cold ash. The chairs were all facing different directions than I remembered. On the front desk was a note, "Breakfast is in the cellar." I stared at the words. The handwriting was too elegant to feel real, like something from an old novel. I considered leaving. The car was still parked where I had left it. But I couldn't remember if I had locked it. Or even if I had actually driven here. The keys were in my pocket, heavy and cold. I opened the cellar door. A narrow staircase, steep and winding, descended into the shadows. Lanterns flickered down the walls, one by one, as if sensing my presence. The air grew colder with each step. At the bottom, a long table, set for at least 20. Plates of food, still steaming. Biscuits. Eggs. Smoked meats. Pitchers of dark tea. And people. Sitting. Unmoving. 20 of them. Men. Women. Children. All dressed in old-fashioned clothing. Pale. Eyes wide open. None of them breathing. None of them blinking. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, rooted. My own breath loud in my chest. Then, as one, they turned to look at me. Their mouths did not move. But I heard them speak. "You signed the book. That means you stay." I don't remember running. Only the sensation of cold stone beneath my hands as I scrambled back up the cellar steps. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. Behind me, no footsteps. No voices. Just the stillness of a room where 20 sets of eyes had turned to watch me, all at once. And yet, I had heard them. I had heard them speak in my mind. As though the words had bypassed my ears entirely and gone straight into the center of my skull. "You signed the book. That means you stay." I was shaking. I didn't know how long I'd been standing at the top of the cellar stairs. When I turned, the inn was no longer empty. Music was playing. A slow, dragging waltz, from an old gramophone in the parlor. And people were dancing. Not 20 anymore, but dozens. The lobby and sitting rooms had become a ballroom. Guests in tailcoats and gowns floated across the wooden floors, smiling with eyes that looked like glass. Their movements were almost human, but not quite. Their feet didn't always touch the ground. I backed away, careful not to be seen. But one of them noticed me anyway. A man in a black frock coat and a crimson cravat. His skin was smooth and stretched too tightly across his face. He smiled. And then he bowed. "Will you join us?" he asked. His voice was not unkind, but the kind of kindness that snakes offer birds. I think I've overstayed," I muttered. "You only just arrived," he said. "And there is so much more of you to remember." I didn't understand. I turned to leave. But the door to the outside, the one I had come through, was no longer there. In its place, a wall of faded wallpaper. A landscape painting I didn't remember seeing before. Trees bent by wind. A sky choked in bruised clouds. No path. No light. The man in the cravat stepped forward. "You forget that you asked for rest. That's what brought you here, isn't it? Tiredness so deep your soul was unraveling." I stepped backward until my heel hit the base of the stairs. "I never asked for this." He only smiled. "But you did. In your own way." The lights above dimmed. When I looked again, he was gone. I fled back to my room. The hallway stretched farther than it had before. It seemed endless now. I ran past doors that hadn't been there last night. Doors without numbers. Some with symbols instead, sigils, chalk marks, etched shapes that hurt to look at. When I reached room 3, I slammed the door behind me and locked it. My phone was still on the nightstand, still glowing with the time, 11:11 p.m. just like before. I pressed the power button. Nothing. I held it. The screen flickered. Lines danced. The numbers scrambled. And then, words appeared, typed in pale blue, "You signed the book." I dropped the phone. It didn't fall. It just hovered in place for a second before vanishing completely. As though it had never existed. Panic clawed up my throat. I opened the nightstand drawer, looking for anything to ground me. Inside was a leather-bound book. Old. Thick. It wasn't there before. I opened it. The pages were filled with names. All handwritten. Some in ink, some in faded charcoal, some scratched in with what looked like blood. And near the end, my name. Written in neat cursive, with the exact same signature I'd used at the front desk. Beneath my name, a single line in smaller text. "Sleeps here now. Rests forever." I flipped to the final page. Blank. Except for one small note, centered perfectly. "Do not turn the next page." My hands moved before I could stop them. I turned it. And saw a drawing of myself. Not a photo, no, it was hand-drawn. But detailed. My face. My jacket. My expression. Terrified. And next to the portrait, scratched into the paper with shaking letters, "Help me. I'm still inside." The walls of the room began to pulse. Like they were breathing. I backed toward the window and looked out. What had once been a village was now a forest of stone, twisting towers, spiraling rooftops, impossible architecture crawling across the sky like bones of some sleeping giant. The stars above were unfamiliar, too many, too bright. And some of them moved. Then the whispering began. Not in the room. In the mirror. I turned toward the vanity. My reflection stared back. But something was wrong. It blinked too slowly. It smiled when I did not. Then it raised its hand, while mine stayed still. It mouthed words, "Wake up." I spoke aloud. "I'm not asleep." The reflection shook its head. "You are. But not like before." I stepped closer to the mirror. My reflection leaned in too, but not in sync. "Who are you?" I asked. It hesitated. Then, finally, it mouthed, "The one who failed." And its eyes began to bleed. A knock at the door. I turned, heart frozen. Another knock. Slow. Heavy. Wooden. I approached it. Something inside me screamed not to open it. A voice came from the hallway. "Your second night begins now. There are 7. I didn't respond. A note slipped under the door. Folded parchment, old and dry. I picked it up with shaking hands. Inside, only 4 words: "You were always here." I don't know how long I stood there. The fire had started again in the hearth. The clock on the mantel ticked backwards. The mirror's surface had gone dark, and I could no longer see my own face. I sat on the bed, opened the leather-bound book again, and flipped back through the names. One caught my eye. Eleanor Thorne. The same surname as the inn, the Thorne House. Next to it, a date. 1891, beneath that, in much smaller text, "She built the house." But it is no longer hers. More pages turned, though I didn't move. The book flipped on its own. Names. Names. Hundreds. Thousands. All those who had come before. Some crossed out. Some burned. Some smudged beyond recognition. And one name, just before mine, was completely erased. But I could still feel it there. Like a hole in my memory that was never mine to begin with. I laid back on the bed. The fire spoke in crackles and hisses. I could hear footsteps in the walls. Crawling. Scratching. Pacing above the ceiling. And far below, down in the cellar, a single voice sang an old lullaby in a language I didn't understand. Sleep came for me again. Heavy. Cold. But just before I drifted off, I saw something on the ceiling. A crack. No, not a crack. A keyhole. Watching. Waiting. When I awoke, the light in the room was the color of bruises. Pale purple. Faint blue. Not dawn. Not dusk. Just, in between. The fire was gone again, and my breath smoked in the cold air. I sat up slowly, unsure if I'd truly slept or simply slipped into another layer of whatever this place was. The crack in the ceiling, the keyhole I had seen before, was still there. Still watching. And now, something was different. My door was open. Just slightly. Just wide enough that I could see the hallway beyond. But the hallway had changed. There were no walls. Only doors. Dozens. Hundreds. An endless stretch of dark wood, brass knobs, and numbers that made no sense. Some were labeled with dates. Some with equations. One read simply, "Yours." I stood. The air pressed in tight around my chest, like I was underwater. I stepped into the hall. The floor was soft. Not carpet. Not wood. Something else. Something that pulsed with warmth beneath my feet. I tried to find the stairs. They were gone. There was no end to the corridor. Just door after door after door. Until I came to one that was already open. No number. No name. Just blackness beyond. Inside, a spiral staircase descending into what looked like a library. But not like any library I had ever seen. The shelves curved impossibly around pillars of bone-colored stone. The books had no titles, only symbols that shimmered and changed when I tried to read them. There were no windows. No lamps. But everything was dimly, softly lit, as if the air itself gave off a gentle glow. I descended slowly. My footsteps made no sound. In the center of the library was a desk. Behind it, a figure. Cloaked. Hooded. not moving. I stepped closer. The figure did not look up, but spoke. "You're late." "For what?" I asked, my voice sounding far away. "For remembering." He slid something across the desk. A photograph. My face. Only, older. Haggard. Sunken eyes. A scar across the cheek that I didn't have. And behind me, in the photo, was the inn. But it looked different. Burnt. Collapsing. As if it had been abandoned for centuries. "I've never seen this before," I whispered. "But you took it," the figure said. "After your third return." I shook my head. "I don't understand." "You don't have to. You just have to wake up. I told you, I'm not asleep." The figure looked up. There was no face beneath the hood. Just a mirror. And in it, I saw myself, standing where he sat. For a moment, we switched. I was behind the desk. And the me in front of it was holding the photograph. Then it snapped back. The figure, me, leaned forward and whispered, "Find the room between walls. Before the house forgets you." And everything went dark. When I came to, I was lying in my bed again. The door was closed. The fire was lit. The book of names lay open on the floor, as if it had been thrown. The page with my name had changed. Now, beneath it, a second line had appeared, "Wanders. Loops forgets." I stood and walked to the window. The village outside was gone. Now only forest. Dead trees. Fog. Shapes moving just out of focus. Then, a knock. 3 sharp raps at the door. I turned, slowly. A voice. Small. Childlike. "Have you seen my room?" I opened the door. No one was there. Only a note, pinned to the frame with an antique needle. It read, "The room between walls is not a room. It is a memory you hid from yourself. You must bleed to enter." I looked up. At the end of the hall stood a little girl. Pale. Black hair. No shoes. She held a porcelain doll missing its face. She pointed down the hall and whispered, "It's behind room 0. And then she was gone. I searched for hours. Or minutes. Time had no shape in this place. Eventually, I found it. A door with a copper plate that read simply, 0, no handle. But beneath it, a slit. Like a mouth waiting to be fed. I reached into my pocket. A shard of glass from the mirror. How long had it been there? I pressed it to my palm and drew blood. A single drop. I let it fall into the slit. The door opened. And I entered the room between walls. It wasn't a room. It was a memory. Mine. I stood in a hospital hallway. Fluorescent lights buzzing. A smell of antiseptic. The steady beep of heart monitors somewhere beyond the white doors. I knew this place. Knew it too well. Down the hall, room 317. The last place I had seen her. I tried to turn away, but the hallway stretched, warped, pulled me forward until I was outside the door. I reached for the knob. And it turned, slowly. Inside, the hospital bed was empty. Sheets folded. A single piece of paper lay on the pillow. I walked forward and read it. It was my own handwriting. "You came here to forget. But forgetting is the trap. Not the escape." A sound behind me. I turned, and there she was. Her. My sister. But not as I remembered her. She was thinner. Eyes sunken. Her lips moved, but no sound came. And then her face twisted, not in pain, but in recognition. And fear. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. It's feeding on you. Who is? I asked. She looked up at the ceiling. The paint there cracked open like an eye. A great, black pupil stared down. The house. I woke in the hallway outside room 0. This time, the girl with the doll was beside me. She sat cross-legged, humming to herself. What's happening to me? I asked. She didn't look up. But she said, softly, the house doesn't like when you remember. It wants you to sleep forever. That's what it feeds on. Sleeping minds. Wandering thoughts. Forgotten guilt. What do I do? She looked at me then. Both her eyes were completely white. You have 4 nights left. Or you'll become another name in the book. She stood, doll cradled in her arms. Don't forget the keyhole. That's where the house listens. And don't eat anything after midnight. Why? She paused at the edge of the hall. If you do, you'll wake up inside someone else. And with that, she walked through a wall and vanished. I returned to room 3. Or tried to. But now the numbers on the doors kept changing. Room 3 was now room 13. Then 31. Then just a symbol, a spiral made of eyes. When I finally found my door again, it was open. And inside, someone was already sleeping in my bed. Their face turned away. But I recognized the shirt. The posture. The way the fingers twitched in sleep. It was me. Still. Breathing. Trapped in the dream I thought I had escaped. I reached toward the figure. And the moment I touched my own shoulder, the room collapsed. The walls folded like paper. The bed turned to ash. And a voice, low and endless, echoed all around, you were warned. Now, it begins again. And the floor vanished beneath me. I fell. And fell. And fell. I awoke in water. Not cold. Not warm. Just endless. It cradled me like a mother, soundless and still, stretching in all directions. But I could breathe. Somehow. Like the rules here were no longer rules, just suggestions. Above me, no sky. Just blackness, speckled with stars that blinked too slowly. Some pulsed red, like warning lights. Others looked back. And then, the surface above rippled, and the water around me drained away in an instant. I fell, gasping, onto a tiled floor, soaked but dry, if that makes any sense. The air buzzed with a strange electric hum. I was no longer in the hallway. I was in a vast chamber filled with mirrors. Thousands of them. Each suspended in midair, spinning slowly. They weren't hung on walls, there were no walls here, only infinite space. No ceiling. No floor I could see beyond the one beneath my feet, which seemed made of shifting glass panels that pulsed with light beneath every step. And in every mirror, a version of me. Some sleeping. Some screaming. Some staring back in silence, lips moving with words I couldn't hear. A voice whispered behind me, this is the mirror of doors. Pick wrong, and you'll forget you ever existed. I turned. The girl with the doll again. But this time, her face was older. She aged each time I saw her, like something inside the house was using her up. You're running out of nights, she said. And the house is waking up now. It knows you're not dreaming like the others. It doesn't like that. What am I supposed to do? I asked. She pointed at the mirrors. One leads forward. 2 trap you. The rest take you back. Back where? She smiled sadly. To before. To every pain you ever buried. Every version of you that couldn't wake up. My reflection in the nearest mirror looked scared. Not scared like me, more like it knew something terrible and didn't know how to say it. How do I know which one is real? I asked. Her smile faded. That's the trick. None are real. But one is real enough. Then she vanished, not walked away, not faded, just blinked out, as if she'd never been there. I walked slowly, mirror to mirror, listening. And then one whispered. So soft I almost missed it. My own voice. But not echoing, pleading. Help me. I stepped toward it. And the moment I touched the glass, it liquefied. I fell through. I landed in a hospital bed. But not as a visitor, as a patient. Wires in my arms. Tubes. The beep of a heart monitor next to me. White walls. A TV playing static. A nurse walked in. But she had no face. Just a smooth, blank mask of skin where her features should be. You're stable, she said. But you'll need to rest longer. I'm not supposed to be here, I whispered. She leaned in close. No one ever is. But they all stay. I looked toward the window. It was night. Outside, instead of a street or skyline, I saw the inn. Sitting under the same starlit sky. Lit by flickering lanterns. Its windows like open mouths. I pulled the wires from my arms and stood. The floor beneath me wasn't tile, it was covered in names. Thousands. Scrawled in marker, crayon, ink, blood. My name was there again. This time, with a countdown beneath it, 4 nights remaining. I stumbled toward the hallway. The lights began to flicker. And behind me, the nurse began to hum. The same lullaby I had heard in the cellar. I ran. I burst through a door, and found myself back in the inn. Only now, it was burning. Not fire, exactly. The walls were bleeding smoke. The stairs melted downward in impossible spirals. Doors twisted, splitting open to reveal eyes blinking inside. And the house was alive now. It pulsed and groaned with every step. Something chased me, not a figure, but a presence. I felt it every time I turned a corner too fast, every time I blinked. It wasn't following me through the halls. It was becoming the halls. The house was wrapping itself tighter around me. Trying to remember me so it could consume me. I found a door marked with a silver. The only one I hadn't seen before. Inside, a small, dimly lit room. Empty except for a single chair. And on that chair, a man. Face obscured by shadow. He spoke without looking up. You're fighting it. Good. But not enough. Who are you? I asked. A guest. Like you. A long time ago. I stepped closer. And saw, it wasn't a man. It was a husk. A figure burned hollow. Skin like candle wax. Eyes long gone. Why haven't you escaped? He shook his head slowly. There is no escape. Only choices. Then what do I choose? He looked up then. And for the first time, I saw my own face on his body. You already did, he said. You chose to forget. And now you're running out of time. I ran again. The house collapsed behind me. Rooms turned to dust. Hallways folded into each other. I opened every door I passed. Some led to memories. Others led to nothing. One led to a version of myself sitting at a desk, writing this very story. Another led to a child's bedroom where something whispered from under the bed, "We sleep in you now." I finally found the stairs to the attic. A place I had never dared to go. I climbed slowly. Each step creaked like a scream. At the top, one final door. Carved into the wood, "Do not enter until you're ready to die." I touched the knob. Cold. Turned it. And stepped into the attic. Inside, only mirrors. Everywhere. Ceiling to floor. Except these were cracked. Shattered. Each one showed a broken version of me, old, young, scarred, smiling, mad. Some missing pieces. Some with eyes gouged out. And in the center of the attic, the book of names. Resting on a pedestal made of black stone. It was open to a blank page. And a quill hovered in the air, waiting. Waiting for me to write something. Above me, the ceiling creaked. The crack had followed me here. The eye behind it, larger now, blinked once. And then, the voice came back. Deep. Endless. Write your truth. Or sleep here forever. My hands moved. I wrote, I remember. The book screamed. The mirrors shattered completely. The attic shook. And the door behind me vanished. The attic dissolved. Not in fire, or dust, or collapse. It simply folded away. Like a page turning. One moment I was standing beside the screaming book, the next, I was falling, slowly, as if the house had let go of gravity. No wind. No fear. Just the sensation of sinking into thought. Down, 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 until I landed in a hallway that pulsed with breath. The walls expanded, then shrank, as if the entire place were alive, inhaling, exhaling, dreaming. There were no doors here. Only arches. One led to a bedroom, mine, but reversed. My bed on the ceiling, the lamp dripping light upward. One arch led to a forest, where the trees swayed not with wind, but with the rhythm of something sleeping deep beneath the roots. And the third led into darkness. Not shadow. Not night. A total absence of light or memory. I stepped through. I was in the hollow. An underground cavern lit by nothing but the faint glow of the stone walls. Veins of white flickered like nerves. A soundless hum filled the space. The air was heavy. Not just with moisture or decay. But with intention. This place was meant to be forgotten. And yet, here I was. Ahead, I saw them, the figures. Dozens. Standing still. Covered in cloth, like statues beneath sheets. None moved. None breathed. I approached the nearest one. As I reached out, a whisper slithered through the air, they all chose sleep. I yanked back my hand. Another whisper, this time from behind, dreamers become dwellers. And dwellers feed the house. I turned. A mirror. Hanging from nothing. It showed me, eyes closed, mouth open slightly, like someone in the deepest slumber. The caption beneath the image read, "Sleeps well. Forgets often." I reached toward the mirror. It shattered. And in its place, stood the little girl. She looked almost old now. Her hair grayed. Her skin pale and translucent. "You've gone too far," she said softly. "Then help me," I whispered. "Tell me how to wake up." "You don't wake up," she replied. "You just remember enough to move forward." "What am I trying to remember?" She pointed to a figure in the far corner of the cavern. "That one." I walked toward it. The closer I got, the more the cloth around it dissolved. It wasn't a stranger. It was my mother. I hadn't thought of her in years. Not since the accident. Not since the night of the hospital. Not since. I chose to forget. She stood there, still and lifeless, eyes closed, but her mouth moved, silently mouthing a word. Over and over, home. And I remembered. I remembered the car crash. The screams. The way I had survived, and she hadn't. I remembered being awake for days, unable to sleep. And then the prescription. The safe place they sent me to. Not a hospital. Not a retreat. An inn. At the edge of town. The one that only appeared at night. The one they said would help me reclaim my dreams. I hadn't been here by accident. I had come to forget. Voluntarily. And the house had obliged. It gave me dreams. Endless ones. Each night, a different layer. Each morning, a memory erased. Until I wasn't sure what was real anymore. But now, I knew. I had let the house in. And it had been feeding on me ever since. The little girl was gone. The figures began to stir. Not like people waking up. Like puppets regaining strings. Their heads turned toward me in perfect unison. And they began to smile. Not kindly. Hungrily. I ran. Back through the arches. Back into the heart of the house. But now, the walls were closing in. Rooms no longer led where they should. The library was upside down. The cellar was full of mirrors now, all reflecting what I was trying not to see, me, standing still. Eyes empty. Drool at the edge of my mouth. Sitting in a chair. Still asleep. I reached the lobby. The front desk was gone. The fire was out. The only thing left was the book of names, now bound in flesh. I opened it. My name had been written in again. A third time. And beneath it, sleeps forever. I took the quill beside it. Held it. Thought for a long moment. And wrote, in shaky letters, no more. The moment I did, a loud, wet tearing sound echoed through the inn. The walls screamed. The lights burst. And the house screeched like an animal caught in a trap. Because I had done something no guest was ever supposed to do. Refuse sleep. I had chosen to stay awake. Everything went dark. Then light. Then dark again. I floated, bodiless, through memories both real and false. My sister in the hospital. My mother's accident. The inn rising from the woods like a wound. And then I saw the truth. The inn had no foundation. It existed inside me. It was built for my forgetting. Every time I chose not to feel. Every time I dulled the pain. Every time I whispered, I'm fine, when I wasn't. The house grew. And I had fed it. For years. But now I was waking up. I opened my eyes. Truly. And I was in a hospital bed. Real this time. Not perfect. But real. Beside me, a notebook. Full of drawings of the inn. Scribbles. Dreams. Notes. A nurse walked in. This time, with a face. You're awake, she smiled. We weren't sure you ever would. How long? I croaked. She paused. 17 days. I stared out the window. It was raining. No strange trees. No flickering in. Just the gray light of morning. And for the first time in what felt like centuries, I didn't feel the house watching me. I was awake. I was sure of it. I could hear the steady beep of the heart monitor beside me. Smell the sterile scent of the hospital. Feel the weight of the blanket over my legs. I could see my own hands, thin, pale, but steady. I could hear my name being spoken softly by a nurse I didn't know. And yet, something was wrong. It was in the corners of the room. The way the shadows stretched a little too long. The way the light flickered, almost imperceptibly, like the bulb was breathing. I tried to ignore it. The doctors said I'd been in a coma for over 2 weeks. They said the trauma had fractured something deep inside me. That I'd be recovering for a while. That dreams, vivid ones, were common during long-term unconsciousness. They told me not to worry. But they didn't see what I saw when I closed my eyes. They didn't hear the door at the back of my mind. The one still waiting to be opened. The first night back home, I didn't sleep. I watched the walls. The cracks. I listened. And just after midnight, I heard it. 3 knocks. Soft. Deliberate. Not on my front door. Not from outside. From inside my closet. I didn't open it. I couldn't. Not yet. On the second night, the dreams came back. Not as full nightmares, not the screaming, blood-slicked halls of the inn, but shadows of them. Faint footsteps outside my window. A mirror in the hallway showing a version of me still asleep. And always, the sound of breathing, just behind my head, when I turned over in bed. I started seeing people. On the streets. On buses. At the grocery store. They looked normal, until I looked again. And then I'd notice, they didn't blink. Their smiles didn't move. Their reflections didn't match. Or their shirts bore the faint image of an old, familiar symbol, a keyhole. The same one carved into the door that led to the attic. The same one printed in the book of names. They were guests. Just like me. But they hadn't escaped. They were walking echoes. Shells left behind. Sleepers pretending to be awake. I found the notebook again. The one from the hospital. My dream journal, they called it. Except I don't remember writing in it. Not the sketches. Not the messages scrawled in the margins. One page had a single sentence repeated 30 times, "Don't answer the door. Don't answer the door. Don't answer the door." But the last line was different. It read, "Unless it's her." And below it, drawn in jagged ink, the doll. That same horrible, smiling doll the girl always carried. The one with button eyes and a cracked porcelain cheek. That night, I fell asleep despite myself. And I dreamed of her. The girl. She was no longer aging. No longer decaying. She was whole again. But her face was blank, smooth and pale. Just a doll now. And she whispered, "You left too early. You closed the door but didn't lock it. You can still hear it breathing, can't you?" I nodded. "Then you have one last thing to do." She reached into her pocket. Handed me a key. But not just any key. The key. The one I had refused. The one that opened the final door. The door I had never dared to enter. When I awoke, the key was in my hand. Cold. Heavy. Real. There was no explanation. No rational way to process it. But I knew. I couldn't live like this, caught between waking and sleep, real and false. There was one place left to go. The door I had seen in dreams but never dared approach. The one behind the others. The last door. I followed the signs. Back to the forest on the edge of town. Where the inn once stood, now a hollow lot, overgrown and silent. But as the sun set, the fog rolled in. And there it was. The inn. Rebuilt. Whole. Waiting. This time, I didn't knock. I walked through the front doors. No one stopped me. The lobby was quiet. The fire was lit. And the book of names lay open. One page left. Blank. I walked past it. Up the stairs. Past the rooms. To the very top. To the attic. And there, at the far wall, was the door. Simple. Wood. With a silver keyhole. I inserted the key. Turned it. And stepped through. Inside. Nothing. No walls. No ceiling. No floor. Only stars. Billions of them, swirling like a storm above and below. And in the center, floating. A bed. White sheets. Fluffed pillows. And someone in it. Me. Asleep. Peaceful. Breathing softly. I walked to the bedside. Watched myself for a long time. And then I understood. I had never left. Not really. I had peeled back layers. Run through mirrors. Fled from memories. But the real me had never woken. He was still here. Still dreaming. Still feeding the house. The version walking around out there, in the waking world, was just another layer. Another dream. I looked down at the sleeping version of myself. He opened his eyes. And smiled. Welcome back. Epilogue: if you ever find yourself walking a wooded road at night, and you see a soft light through the trees, a warm inn, a vacancy sign flickering, a room waiting, don't go in. No matter how tired you are. No matter how much you want to forget. Because sleep is not always a comfort. And some dreams have teeth.